What's good, mathematicians? This is Professor Sampson of PS. I am PS, Professor Sampson. I love math. And today we're back with another math banger. What are we doing today? All right, what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be learning how to complete the square. Complete the square. Now, I'm not going to go into all of the details. I assume that your instructor has gone through the background. I'm just going to go through a lot of examples and we're going to see that you know how to do it. But before I start, do not forget to click subscribe. Always jack that up. Don't forget to click subscribe and like my channel. And please make some comments. This is a place for you. So if you would like to see another video, just let me know in the comments down below. Okay, so let's get started. I'm gonna get started by sharing my screen. So welcome to those of you who haven't come yet, and you'll see how we go about this here at PS. All right, so let's dive right into it. So on the side, I have the steps for completing the square. Okay, solving a quadratic by completing the square. Again, all the background information you should get from your instructor. These are just examples to help you through. So the first step is that a needs to be 1. So you should know that a quadratic is made up in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c. Is how a quadratic equals 0, is how a quadratic equation is written. Equation because you have the equal sign, of course. All right, so ax squared plus bx plus c. A, b, and c are always numbers, but in order to do the quadratic, to complete the square, a needs to be equal to 1. Okay, a needs to be equal to 1. If it's not, we get it. We change it around and make it equal to 1, which is what step 1 of that process is telling you about. All right, and now we're going to go through all these other steps here. You can copy the steps. Also, what is required is that you know how to use the square root property. If you don't, there'll be a video on the square root property. Just look on my page. I haven't gotten good enough to say, here's the link, click it down below, put it in the comments, you know, it's somewhere up here. So anyway, let's start with a basic example here. X squared plus 4x minus 5. Okay, so the first thing that you want to see about this equation is that it looks as if it can be factored, right? Now, this will depend on your instructor. If they just ask you to solve it, then there's no reason for you to complete the square. Why would I complete the square? Why would I do a longer process if I could do a quick process? However, if the instructions are that you need to complete the square, then you need to complete the square. Because we know, if we recall, right, that's recall, that's what that's supposed to say, that this would factor down to x, let's say, plus 5, and x minus 1. Hence, x would equal to negative 5 and x was equal to 1. All right, so that's what that would break down to. Okay, so we already know that. However, we're not asked to factor in that method. All right, what we're asked to do is complete the square. So step 1 in completing the square is that the constant needs to be on the right hand side. And this is all relative because we're saying the right hand side. So the constant needs to be on the right hand side. So that's our first step. Now, if your constant is already on your right hand side, and remember constant is C, all right, the only one without a letter. All right, so in order to move that constant, we're going to add 5. That's going to leave us with x squared plus 4x. Let's try that again. So x squared plus 4x is equal to 5. All right, so that's step 1. You move the constant term on one side of the equation, but I like to say to the right. Okay. So once we do that, the next step is we might want to call this the first step, move the constant. The second step, all right, is to take half of b or divide b by 2 and square it. Now remember, at the beginning, we said we knew a. In this case, a is already 1, so we don't have to worry about it. We have b, which is 4, and c, which is -5, okay? So the next step is to take half of b and square it, all right? So I'm gonna show you my little trick here, my little shortcut. So half of b, or divide b by 2, okay? B by 2. Because I don't like half, because students get confused with half when it's not an even number. So just divide b by 2. So I'm gonna take 4 divided by 2. And what's that equal to? 2. And I'm actually going to put a little asterisk here. I'll tell you why in a minute. And then I'm going to square it. All right. Step 3 is to add that number, add the number that you got from number 2 to both sides. So in our problem, we have x squared plus 4x plus 4 is equal to 5 plus 4. Now we're just going to clean it up. So that's x squared plus 4x plus 4 is equal to 9. All right. Once we get that, we're going to use the square root property. Now, again, the square root property is in another video that I have here, but assuming that you know what the square root property, I'm sorry, not the square root property, we're going to do the binomial. We're going to have a square of the polynomial after we do that. So we'll get to the square root property, but we need to just factor this. So this becomes factorable. All right. We need to factor that. And you should know from factoring that this becomes, if you don't, it's pretty simple. All right. You know that you're going to get a binomial, right? You know you're going to get a binomial, right? This stuff right here. We already know what the answer is ultimately going to be, right? This becomes x plus my little asterisk, right? 2. Then you don't have to go back and do it over. So x plus my little asterisk, all right? So x plus 2 squared. Right? At this point, we do the square root property. Which again, you already learned, which is the square root both sides. And remember, when you square root the right side, you have to add a plus or minus. Right? It is always going to come out to a perfect square trinomial. What? A perfect who? What? A perfect square trinomial. All right. A perfect square trinomial is a binomial that multiplies itself twice. So x plus 5, x plus 5, x minus 2, x minus 2. This factor here is always going to come out to a perfect square trinomial. Hence, you'll be able to write whatever square. So had you factored that, you would have got x plus 2 and x plus 2. Okay. So now we need to solve. Now remember, these are 2 different numbers. Okay. So let's solve this. You can do it one of 2 ways. I like for my students to break it down into x plus 2 is equal to 3, and x plus 2 is equal to -3, right? Subtract 2 from both sides on this one. You get x is equal to 1. And then subtract 2 on this side. and you get x is equal to -5. Which is the same answer we got because the problem was factorable. Okay, the problem was factorable. So we got the same answer. All right. So we're going to do a few more examples. So stick around to the end so you can continue to get some practice. I will wait for a little while you try to get your answers. So let's move on. So the next problem that we're going to work on, and you can always rewind and stop or whatever, and then I won't have the directions on the side. We'll just go through it. So let's start with this problem. X squared plus 3 is equal to 10x. Okay, well, this is weird, right? What I would like to do is set it up in a regular quadratic form, all right? Which means that I'm going to move the 10x to the left so that I can get a regular standard form, ax squared plus bx plus c, x squared minus 10x, right, plus 3. I don't like to skip steps, so that's a minus 10x, just in case you didn't remember, okay? Now, this one obviously is not factorable, so it leaves itself well to complete in the square. So step 1 is to move the 3 over because the constant needs to be on the other side. Right? Step 2 is to do what? Divide b by 2 and square it. Now, I probably shouldn't say this on the video. I write 10 divided by 2. It doesn't totally matter because anything you square is going to be positive. So whether I write this is -2 or not won't totally hurt me in my other shortcut, but I'm going to do it properly just so you know. So I'm going to take -10 divided by 2, which gives me -5. That's my asterisk, right? And then I'm going to square -5. -5 times -5 is 25. Then I'm going to add that to both sides. So I have x squared minus 10x plus 25 is equal to -3 plus 25. Now this is going to leave us with x asterisk minus 5 squared is equal to what? 22. Everybody good? Waiting for you to catch up. All right. What's the next step? All right. Square root both sides, the square root property. Don't forget, if you add a square root, you got to add a plus or minus. So this becomes x minus 5 is equal to plus or minus the square root of 22. Because it can't be broken down. Now, I usually add my plus or minus when I add the square root, like right here or something, but I just didn't leave myself enough space. But I won't forget. Maybe you should write it. Maybe you'll forget. Okay? And you could break this up like we did the last one. So maybe to be consistent, I'll break it up or I'll show you what it's like. So you got x minus 5 is equal to the square root of 22, which is the positive. Then you have x minus 5 is equal to negative square root of 22. And remember, when we move this over, do not try to add the 5 to the 22. And do not connect the two. Right? If you think you're going to connect them, meaning make this 5 radical 22, then what you should do is leave the plus there. Because this is x is equal to 5 plus the square root of 22. And the other side is x is equal to 5 minus the square root of 22. Now, of course, depending on your instructor, you may have to write it like this. Some instructors are okay with you writing x is equal to 5 plus or minus the square root of 22. So some instructors may be okay with this. Some programs may or may not be with it if you're using a math software in school. So this is so that you know you get two answers. And we know we're going to get two answers pretty much because this is squared. A little tidbit. How did that go? Want to do another one? So let's move that out. Now, in a later video, I'll tell you when I use complete in the square, okay? Because I don't always use complete in the square. I actually, myself, I use complete in the square other than when I'm told to use it. I use complete in the square when the number in the middle is what? What do you think? Is an even number, because remember, you have to divide it by 2. If you have to divide it by 2, it makes it a little bit more difficult for some of you when the number in the middle isn't even. Okay? So let's do an example of that type first. So how about x squared minus 3x minus 40? Okay? Same first step, since we have to put our constant on the other side, plus 40, plus 40. X squared minus 3x is equal to 40. Okay? Now, the next step is, remember, take b and divide it by 2 and square it. So this is negative 3 over 2, right? And now we need to square it. Now, before we had 4 over 2 and we got 2, right? And then we squared it, all right? Negative 3 over 2, do not change this to a decimal. So this number is fine like it is. It's totally reduced. Remember, that's our asterisk. Now we need to square that number. Now, you can square it by hand, or you can use your trusted calculator. Okay, so let's take a look at that real quick. So just parenthesis, negative 3 divided by 2, close parenthesis, and the square button. If you don't know how to use the calculator to put this in or to put the square button in, please look on my channel and there are videos for inputting this in the calculator. All right, and then changing that back, right, to a fraction. Again, there's a short video on doing that on my page. So 9/4, okay? If you're a little bit more fancy, some of you know you have other fancy ways of doing it. Look at me, I guess I don't have a fancy way of doing it. One of these fancy ways, there it goes. Lord, all right, so I guess I'm not as fancy as I want to be. All right, so there it is. So if you can do this, then you can do 3 over 2, negative 3 over 2, but it's going to be positive, so I'm not going to do it right now. And then you can square that, and then you're going to get 9 over 4. Either way, all right, so 9 over 4. So you're going to get 9 over 4. And once you get 9 over 4, you're going to, okay, sorry about that. It is quarantine time and my kids are interrupting me. So 9/4, okay, so 9/4. So now we have 9/4. Now we're going to add that to both sides, right? Don't get afraid of the fractions. Why are we not going to get afraid of the fractions? We're not going to get afraid of the fractions because we have what? We have our handy dandy calculator, whatever calculator you have. All right. So you got 40 plus, I'm not going to be fancy. Obviously, I wasn't good at it. 9 over 4. All right. And that's going to give me 169 over 4. Okay, 169 over 4. So don't worry about it. As long as you have your calculator, you can get these added. Now, if you're in high school or something and they're not letting you use a calculator, sucks to be you. Okay. So now we have x squared. Now, again, this is going to be x what? Hey, that's why the asterisk is good, right? X minus 3 over 2. This is b. This is half of b. That's what this is. Half of b. X minus 3 over 2 squared is equal to 169 over 4. All right, next step, we need to get rid of this. So we're going to do what we normally do, which is square both sides, square root both sides. All right, so that's going to give us x minus 3 over 2 is equal to what? Now, how do you square this? Recall. All right, this becomes the square root of 169 over the square root of 4. Remember, you can't have square roots in the denominator. The square root of 169 is 13. The square root of 4 is 2. So this becomes 13 over 2. And again, what did I forget? My plus or minus, right? I didn't forget it. All right, now break that up. X minus 3 over 2 is equal to 13 over 2. And then x minus 3 over 2 is equal to negative 13 over 2. All right. Add 3 over 2 to both of them. X is equal to, again, if you don't know, now if you didn't know 169 over 4, just a quick recall, you could have done your square root, right? And I'm not even going to do fancy. I'm going to do 169 divided by 4. Right, 13 over 2. So now I'm going to do, what was that? 13 over 2 plus 3 over 2. Right, 13 over 2 plus 3 over 2. And remember, math interchanges your decimals to fractions. All right, that happens to be 8. And then it was negative 13 over 2. Plus 3 over 2. Right? So is that good? So our answers happen to be 8 and negative 5. Right? 8 and negative 5. So let me make sure I get it right. That was the plus 13 over 2, which you could have done by hand, and I did not. All right, if you remember regular fractions, then this would be 16 over 2. That's why they got 8. So x equals to 8. And then, of course, x equals to x equals negative 5. All right. And how'd you get this? If you remember basic math, negative 13 plus 3 is negative 10 over 2, which gives you negative 5. That's how the calculator, of course, got the answer. Okay. So you see that I like to use completing the square, right? When the numbers are even, it just gives me an easier problem to do because I don't have to work with the fractions. So like here, I got 10 over 2. That was 5 and I was good to go. I didn't have to do any fraction work. And in the first one, I didn't have to do any fraction work. So usually I like to leave those for if I have a choice. So you might have a test that says choose a method. So if I have an even number in the middle, I'm going to complete the square. If I don't have an even number in the middle, then I'm not going to complete the square. I'm going to use some other method if I am allowed. Let's do another type. Because if you remember from step one said that a has to be equal to 1. So let's check this one out. 3x squared plus x minus 4 is equal to 0. Okay. So now this violates the first step. The first step is that, well, violates how this should be set up. This should be set up that a is equal to 1, but we'll take care of that. Now you can add 4 first, or you can do your division first. It's just a preference. It doesn't matter. I'm actually going to add 4 first just to get it set up in the right structure. Right? But a is supposed to be equal to 1. All right. All right. So again, I could have done it here because I have to make a equal to 1. That means I have to divide everything through by 3, leaving me, right, with a equal to 1. I'm going to write that as 1/3 x. All right. But I'll do it over here. So I have this. I have to divide everything through by 3 because a has to be equal to 1. So I'll get x squared plus x over 3 is equal to 4 over 3. All right. Now, as you remember, this is 1/3 x. Okay, that's the number. This is b. B is not x. There can't be b, a, b, and c. A. And it might be best, I usually tell my students to write it down. A is a number, right? A is a number, right? B is a number, it's not an X. So B is 1/3 and when it first started, okay? So let's see. We already have the structure now because we already added the constant, put the constant on the right side. And A is equal to 1, so we can begin our steps. Right? So we need to take B and divide it by 2. That's why I don't like saying half of B, because students get confused. They don't know what half of a third is, all right? So I'm going to take B, right, which is 1/3, and I'm going to divide that by 2. What do I get? Now I'm going to put this in my calculator. I know how to obviously do it in my head. 1/3 divided by 2 so that you can see also the calculator work that goes along with it. So remember, 1/3 is the fraction. So all fractions need to be put into parentheses if you're not using the fraction button. So 1 divided by 3, close parenthesis, divided by 2. I'm going to show you it's going to be a decimal, but math enter is going to get back the right answer. Okay? That works. So our answer is 1/6. All right? Or you could use the fraction bar. I think on the 83, the fraction bar is in here somewhere, is under math somewhere. Yeah, under here is here, but I could have done this way, 1 divided by 3. If you wanted to be fancy, then divided by 2. And in that way, I don't have to put in the parentheses. All right. But I still, and if I put it that way, it'll give it back to me in a fraction because I gave it to the calculator in a fraction, so it'll give me back a fraction. But either way, it doesn't matter. You can do the regular way. Just make sure you put 1/3 in parentheses. It won't be a difference now, but sometimes without the parentheses, the calculator will not give you the correct answer. So just keep them in parentheses, okay? So either way, that's 1/6. So that's 1/6. That's our asterisk, because once we divide by 2, that's our little asterisk, all right? Now we need to square it, right? Square it. I never write it, but we need to square it. So we might know what it is, so let's go there, all right? So since it was my last answer, I can technically just push square and get the answer. But if it wasn't your last answer, all right, you would do what you did before, parenthesis 1/6, close parenthesis, and then square it. And you get a decimal, and you hit math, enter, enter. So you get 1/36. Okay? So 1/36. Okay, so what do we do with that 1/36? We're going to add that to both sides. This becomes what? X what? Plus asterisk, or half of B. Now you got 4/3 plus 1/36. Why don't you pop that in your calculator and see what you get? (49/36). All right. Next step is what? Square root both sides. So I wind up with x plus 1/6 is equal to plus or minus square root of 49/36. Don't forget. Now I can rewrite it down here. I'll wait till I get to the top. Remember, we can't have it. This is having a square root in the bottom. So for some of you at this point, maybe you would put just so you can remember what that is, or simply put it in your calculator, okay? So the next step here is I'm going to write what that is. X plus 1/6 is equal to plus or minus square root of 49 is 7, square root of 36 is 6. And now I just need to finish up the problem by breaking it up into my two pieces. X plus 1/6 is equal to 7/6, and then x plus 1/6 is equal to negative 7/6. Now you can put this in your calculator. I'm just going to do it. 7 minus 1 is 6. That's 6/6, which is 1. All right. And then I'm going to subtract 1/6, subtract 1/6. In this case, that's why you want to use your calculator, because sometimes students will leave it like this. All right. That's why I'm asking you to use your calculator, because I would mark this incorrect because it's not reduced. So if you don't know, again, you can always pop these in your calculator. 7/6 minus 1/6. Just go ahead and put it in your calculator. Negative 7/6 minus 1/6. Okay, negative 4/3. The calculator is going to reduce it for you. Why get it wrong or get points taken off when you have your calculator to do the reduction for you? All right. So those are my two answers. X equals 1 and x equals negative 4/3. How's that work for you? So those seem to be the most, or the different types that you'll get. They really can't get any more difficult. than that. Basically, you have to remember all of the steps. So those of you who want to stay, why don't you stay for one more example? Let's do one more example before we call it quits, okay? Do you want to do one where it's already set up or one that's not already set up? Well, I'm actually going to do a combination one where we think we have to do something. So this example is going to be 4x squared plus 8x plus 16 equals 0. Now I'm going to go through this one pretty quickly. Either way, but the first thing you might want to do, now you can subtract your 16 first, or you can divide out the 4 first. Doesn't matter. Last time I subtracted the 16 first. This time I'll divide out the 4 first. Why do I need to divide the 4? Because a needs to be what? A needs to be 1. Okay, now I can subtract the 4. The good thing about this problem is what? Is that my b is an even number, right? Now I'm going to take b and divide it by 2, asterisk. 1 squared is 1. That means I'm going to add 1 to both sides. Then I'm going to say that's going to be x asterisk plus asterisk. Correct? All right, now we need to square root. Uh-oh, what's going on here? Had to leave you with this one, right? What is this? We cannot have a negative under the radical, so by now you should know that that's I. I'm going to pull my I out in the front. I don't like to write it in the back because I don't want my instructor or anybody to think that it's still under the radical. Some students try to put a little hook on it to let you know, but just pull the I out in front. Okay, so now we have something here. So we left with x plus 1 is equal to I radical 3. And then x plus 1 is equal to negative I radical 3. Subtract 1. Your first answer is x is equal to negative 1 plus I radical 3. Subtract 1. And your second answer is x is equal to negative 1 minus I radical 3. Okay, so there's your 2 answers. Had to leave you with one where you had to use an imaginary number. So there you go. Those are 4 examples of how to complete the square. All right, how to complete the square. So I hope that you like this video. Please comment and subscribe so I can give you more videos. Comment and ask me for more videos. I will give you videos in an area in the bottom that says student requested videos. I'll have a playlist for that. So again, IMPS, Professor Sampson, I love math. So don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. All right. And as you know, I definitely love math. Bye. See you next time.